joining. If you're wondering who that is, there'll be a second Nathan. So Nathan Moe is on, but we are expecting a Nathan Abney, just FYI.
Okay.
Oh, and here he comes in. I'll pull the agenda up.
Sorry, I don't have like a little mallet to, to start the meeting, but.
All right, can you see the agenda?
I can. I also have it up on my other screen too.
Yeah, I got mine too.
Yep.
Yep.
Just so we're covered. Okay, I'm gonna do my best on this one. I'm not an expert like the other 2 or 3 are, so. So what do you say, Patty? We ready to get started?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I would like to call in order the Scott County Parks Advisory Commission for January 5th, not January 1st, 2022. This is gonna be a virtual meeting. I'm gonna start off with number 1, which is the roll call. Starting off with Kristen French.
Here.
Kathy Gerlach.
Here.
Carrie Coop.
Here.
Laura Schmidt.
It's Lori Schmidt here.
Oh, there you go. Another correction we have to fix. Eric Spieler here. Pat Stieg.
Here.
Mark Eward is out. And Commissioner John Ulrich.
Here.
Excellent. So for number 2, we're going to do Pledge of Allegiance. And Patty's going to be sharing her screen.
Let's see if I can figure out how to do this without like copyright infringement. I didn't practice this. Just a second.
Sorry about that. I was looking in my office for a flag and I can't find one. So.
All right, this should do.
Can
we see the flag? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Should we start?
No.
I pledge allegiance.
Allegiance.
To the flag.
To the flag.
Of the
United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands. One nation. Under God. Indivisible. With liberty and justice for all.
Stereo.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you, Patty, for sharing that. Now, if you want to go back to the agenda. Number 3 is approval of the agenda. I know Patty had mentioned about making some changes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do have a small tweak. We would like to swap 10B and 10C. So 10C will just come before 10B.
10B, 10C. Got it.
Patty, this is Nathan. I know I requested that early, but Melissa got home early. It's not necessary, but I'm happy to just keep it the way we are shifting it if you'd prefer.
Oh, no, let's go back. Let's strike that amendment. We'll keep the agenda as is. Thanks, Nathan.
Oh, okay. Got it. Are there any other changes that the commissioners would like to make or add or change priorities? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
So we got a motion by French and a second by
Gerlach.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. There you go. Motion approved. So we could go through for number 5, recognition of interested citizens for items not on the agenda. I don't think we have any other visitors.
No, and I didn't receive any emails or phone calls for anyone that wanted to be present or to pass on anything. So nothing on that.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then number 6, we would like to welcome 2 new park advisory commissioners.
We have some minutes we need to approve.
Oh, yep. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself again. I always do that. Approval of the minutes from the December 1st meeting. I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to review them, provide any feedback on them, or any changes needed. Hearing no feedback or no changes needed, can I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 1st?
So moved.
Oh, so we got moved by French and a second by
Gerlach.
Perfect. Very similar to the other one. Sorry, now we'll go back into the right order. Number 5, recognition of interested citizens. Patty said there's no comments. And number 6, we'd like to welcome 2 new park advisory commissioners, Clery Coop, and it should be Lori Schmidt. And I was wondering if maybe Clery and Lori could give a quick update or a quick, a little bio of their background, where they live, and why they want to join the commission. Not to put you guys on the spot or anything like that, but I think it would help to understand, your background, what your interests are in regards to the park commissions.
Certainly. Well, I'm Lori Schmidt. I am an attorney. I've been an attorney since 1997. I have a practice in Apple Valley, but prior to joining that firm about 5 years ago, I was practicing on my own here in Savage, where I live with my husband and 3 fur babies, which brings me to why I'm involved with the parks is, taking them on walks and, using the parks and stuff, walking trails and stuff. That's something that we like to do. And I'm starting to get less involved with my firm. And so I wanted to do more for the community and get involved with whatever I can.
Excellent.
Well, I'm Cary Coop. I live in Belle Plaine. I'm on the park board in Belle Plaine. I'm a volunteer with Fish and Wildlife at the Louisville Swamp. And I'm on the city council and a volunteer with the DNR.
Oh,
Wow.
that's a lot.
That is a lot. And it's really good because it gives you a nice background too of the different mix between the DNR, wildlife, the parks, right? So you could bring some different perspective, to their commission. In addition, I don't know, have we ever had anybody from Belle Plaine in the commission, Patty?
I was thinking not. I think we've had a few from Jordan. I don't know that we've ever had someone from Belle Plaine.
Okay.
So Cary gets to be the first.
Because we always talk about Blakely Bluffs, and we all have a connection to our certain parks, right? Since we live close, to Sea Lake Farms and Murphy and Cleary, et cetera, right? And even the landing, but we've never really had someone down there by Blakely area to provide their feedback and get some good input from like the residents down there too. Good, excellent. Well, before we leave number 6, I also want to give a shout out to Jerry Hennan, who's no longer on the commission. We didn't get a chance to properly say goodbye to him, but hopefully he's watching this video and he's appreciating all the good and hard work that he's put into the commission and how he helped mold our group, for generations to come. So I appreciate his help over the last 9-10 years that I've been on the board. Excellent. So I'll go over to number 7, which is election of chair and vice chair for 2022. And I just wanted to see if anybody was interested in being the chair. I know in the past, Barb was the chair for the last year. And I was just curious if anybody else would be interested in the chair for the 2022 timeframe. It's a lot more fun when we do this in person.
Patty, is it correct that Mark has expressed that he would be willing to accept a nomination, even though he's not here this evening?
Yes, Commissioner. He did say that he would accept, he's willing for his name to be put forth. Yes. That's Mark Ewert.
Okay. Excellent. So is there anybody else besides Mark that would be interested for the chair?
Mr. Chair, this is Pat. I'm wondering if you would be interested in serving in the chair role for the coming year.
Well, thank you for that, bringing that up. In In normal years, I would say yes, but right now with my job, I've just been so busy with evening calls and supply chain issues, it's making it very challenging. I was just really happy to be, you know, on site today, right? Because I've been having calls pretty much every evening for like the last year or so. I wouldn't mind being the vice chair again, but I just don't want to commit myself to be a chair just based on my work schedule right now, because it's just been absolutely crazy.
Very good.
I'm hoping it goes back to normal, so we'll see. Well, hearing no other nominations, could we assume that Mark would be the main candidate, and then we could have a motion to elect Mark as the chair for the 2022?
I will step out and nominate Mark to serve as chair for 2022 for the Scott County Parks Advisory Commission.
Okay. So we've got
I will
motion,
second.
and we got a second.
Yep.
From Pat.
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor, or do we ask any discussion? I should say that. Any discussion on the topic? Nope. So based on that, I don't know what it is. Can we
All
get a
in favor?
vote? Sorry. Can we get a vote or to nominate Mark? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those against say nay. Nope. Congratulations to Mark. Hopefully he's watching this over there in Belgium. He has been elected to be the chair for 2022. And then in regards to vice chair, is there anybody interested?
If there is no one interested, I'd like to make a motion to have Eric be our vice chair for the upcoming year.
I will second.
There you go. Any other discussion? I'll do it again. I don't mind it, right? As long as I'm not, you know, the chair, this will work out perfect. So we've got a motion. We got a second for Eric Spieler to be the vice chair for 2022. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those against, say nay. Hearing no nays, and all those in favor, Eric Spieler will be the vice chair for 2022. Excellent. And since Mark's not here tonight, I'm going to be running the rest of the meeting. Perfect. So let's go to number 8, operations, maintenance, and natural resources. I know, Patty, it says no agenda items. Is there any updates at all? Just nothing?
Nope, nothing on on 8 or 9, nope.
Okay, yep. And then 9's outreach, visitors services, recreation, education programs, no updates there. And then number 10, we're gonna go to the regular schedule, regular agenda. So the 10A Regional Trails Master Planning Project Introduction. Is that Nathan that's gonna be doing that one?
Yes, we have Nathan, if I may, Nathan Abney's with us. I don't know if the commission has met Nathan. He's with our public works group, and similar, some of you might remember Andy Hingeveld was often on loan from the highway department working with the parks group. So similar to that, we were able to bring Nathan Abney over to help us with our regional trail master planning.
Yep, and that would be me. I'm Nathan Abney. I'm a transportation planner with Scott County. Do you want me to share my screen, Patty, or do you just want to scroll through it?
What are you more comfortable with?
I can try to share my screen. That might be easier. All right. Can everybody see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So like Patty said, my name is Nathan Abney. I'm a transportation planner with Scott County, and I'm the project manager for the Scott County Trail Master Planning project that we're going to be kicking off here later this month. So just a quick kind of overview of what the project entails. We're developing master plans for 2 regional trail corridors, the Southern Scott Regional Trail and the Louisville Regional Trail Corridor. We've hired a consultant, SRF Consulting. They're going to be helping us identify the corridor alignments and to prepare the master plans. And then they're also going to help us with some of our public engagement efforts. So the time frame for the project is we're going to be kicking off, like I said, at the end of the month in January here, with final approvals by June of 2023. So we're hoping to have the plan wrapped up sometime in late winter, early spring in 2023. The project is funded through a Parks and Trails Legacy Grant through the Metropolitan Council. And because it is funded through the Met Council, it will meet guidelines for regional trail planning. So just a little bit more in depth about the background and why we're doing this effort. The county's 2040 comprehensive plan, which was adopted in June of 2019, identified a list of parks projects and strategies to accomplish in the next 10 years. And the two search corridors that we're incorporating into this plan were on that list. So they've been identified in the comp plan. Scott County is also lagging in regional trails when we look at the rest of the 7-county metro. So there's really a need to build up the network within the county to kind of match the other counties within the metro area. Trails and better connectivity have been at the top of residents' requests and comments. So we've been hearing that a lot, that we need to build our trail network, and then we also need to connect some of those gaps within the network. And then lastly, once a trail has been approved, once a trail has a approved regional park master plan, the county then is eligible to get funds to help develop the trail through the Metropolitan Council. So both corridors will be included in one master plan. So as far as funding, like I said, we got that grant. We have $197,211 in grant money through the Park and Trails Legacy Grant through the Metropolitan Council. So the grant will be looking at corridor alignments for those two trail segments that I talked about earlier. And then the goal of the project will be to complete the master plans. The outcomes will be completing the master plan documents, the number and demographics of participants and engagement efforts, and then getting the plan approved by the Met Council. And then the plan to measure and evaluate our results, again, getting it approved by the Met Council, our engagement efforts, and then monitor and report on participant demographics based on surveys. So just a kind of an overview of where these corridors are. In northern Scott County is the Louisville Regional Trail Search Corridor. And then the southern Scott corridor is the one on the bottom, kind of the southern part of the county. And like I said, both corridors will be included in one master plan. And then because we did get that grant, they will be part of the regional trail network. So going in depth a little bit on each of the corridors here. So the Louisville Regional Trail Search Corridor is a 5-mile search corridor, which is envisioned as a regional connecting trail, which will connect the Merriam Junction Trail, which is a planned trail that's going to connect Scott to Carver County, and then crossing the Minnesota River. The master planning for this trail has been completed. So that's the kind of lighter green color on the map here on the left side of the screen. And then, so it'll connect that trail to the Big Woods Regional Trail, which is the trail that runs along County Highway 17. So the alignment will roughly follow the County Highway 14 corridor from County Highway 17 to the Merriam Junction Regional Trail. And then the second search corridor is the Scott West, or the Southern Scott Regional Trail. This is overall a 35-mile trail search corridor, which is envisioned as a destination trail that'll connect several parks and communities across Southern Scott County, from Cleary Lake to Jordan, and then eventually to Belle Plaine. But the scope of our project will include only the portion from Cleary Lake to Doyle, Kennefic, and then to Cedar Lake Farms. So the corridor that's circled in red here, that's going to be in the scope of our project. So just a couple milestones for the project. We're going to be having our kickoff meeting on January 25th of this month. We're looking to host 2 open houses, one in the summer and one in the fall of 2022. And then we are looking to have the plan approved by the Scott County Board of Commissioners and then the Parks Advisory Commission. And then that grant closeout is June 2023. So as part of our public engagement efforts, we have developed 2 teams for stakeholder engagement, a technical team, and then a community design team. One technical team and one community design team will be used for both corridors. So we're not going to have separate processes or separate meetings for each corridor. It's going to be a cohesive effort. So the technical team will consist of our county, city, and township representatives. We've been visiting with each of the townships, asking them to delegate someone to be on this team. And then we're going to have our consultants, other elected officials, parks and national resource organizations such as the DNR, and then other subject matter experts. So the technical team will meet jointly and separately with our community design team. And then there's going to be about 6 to 8 joint and separate meetings throughout the planning process. And the responsibilities for this team will be to provide input for the corridor alignments, bring technical expertise to the committee, review feedback from the community design team, and then help with those open houses. So one of the things we're looking for tonight is we're looking for 2 park commissioners to be a part of our team to help us with our planning efforts. So we're looking for 2 people to serve on this team. And then the other team is our community design team. So what this is a team that will consist of residents with local and regional interests who will work collaboratively with our technical design team. So this is anybody in Scott County can be on this team. They don't have to be avid trail users. And we're also encouraging young people to apply. So anyone under 18 can apply as long as they have their parents' permission. So we know that these trails are for the next generation. So we really want to encourage that group of residents within Scott County to be part of this team. So another thing we're looking for your help on is to help us kind of spread the word to get people to apply for this community design team. We have applications online and in PDF that they can apply through. And then just to more or less spread the word, or if you know anyone who would be interested to apply, if you wanted to forward them to us or pass on their information, that would be great. So with that, my information's on the phone or on the screen here. Alyssa has been assisting with the forming of these teams, so you can always reach out to her. And then we do have an email for the project as well. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions. I know that was kind of a high-level overview of the project, so.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really informative. And you're right. I mean, Scott County is really lagging behind the other counties in regards to regional trails. And you really notice that once you get over to like the Hennepin County ones or Washington County or Ramsey, that how far behind we are in regards to these regional trails. So thank you. So I'm gonna just open up for questions to the commissioners. And then after that, then maybe we can look for 2 volunteers for the technical team as well. That works for you, Nathan?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Any questions out there?
I have one, Gerlach. I was just wondering whether or not the PAC members would they be member of the community team, is that correct? Not the tech team? What team would they be part of, the volunteers from the Parks Board?
The technical team.
Will they be on the technical? Okay, I guess I misread that.
Mr. Chair, can I make a couple comments?
Sure.
Kathy, I ended up writing the memo without giving Nathan Abney time to review it. So if I may have sorry, I may have been incorrect there. I do know, and Nathan, please correct me if this is not right. The tech team meets with the
Some of the meetings,
yeah, the citizen team. So certainly they're going to be, I don't know that the community team, will the community team meet without the technical team?
No, so the community and the technical team will meet together quite a bit, but there's going to be a couple separate meetings with just the technical team to kind of get that expertise and that feedback on kind of where we're at with the corridor alignments.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
And will all the meetings be virtual?
Yeah, that was my, thanks, Eric.
Okay, sorry, Kathy, I didn't mean to steal your thunder with that question.
Starting off, definitely. It's hard to say. I mean, this is kind of this process is going to last over a year and a half. So for sure, they'll be virtual in the beginning here. We would like to move to in-person, but it all depends what happens, obviously, with COVID and everything.
Okay. But if weather permits, you could have it outside, right? I mean, that's what I believe Nathan Moe did for the Clear Lake master plan. And then I think you get a lot more input and feedback in person than you may get virtually.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like the open houses, I mean, we would prefer those to be in person as well. So any opportunity we get to have them in person, I think we would move towards that direction.
Excellent.
And this is Lori Schmidt. What type of, at the open houses, are those going to be entailing? Field trips to places, or what are you thinking the open houses are going to be?
So I think what we're kind of thinking is those will be more for, I guess, anyone who wants to learn about the project, not just, you know, the community team or the technical team, but residents living in the area, trail users, and those will probably be on site somewhere. Is kind of the thought behind that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, Nathan, I know it mentions that there's township officials and city officials have been invited to participate or will be. Does that include, even if they're not directly in, like, you know, I'm thinking of the city of New Prague, I think would probably, they have an active Parks Advisory Commission as well for the city. And even though the trail does not technically go into the city or to the city, I know that they, you know, have long-term future interest with, you know, developing another corridor from the city to the park. So.
Yeah, so far it's just been where those corridors are, we've reached out to, but we could definitely open that up to more of the immediate surrounding area of those potential corridors.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be, you know, really good, at least to reach out to the city of New Prague, just because I know that I see that covered in their city meetings and their park meetings, is that's part of their planning process. And you know, then it's up to them if they want to participate in this process, but at least they're being made aware of that corridor coming to the park potentially at some point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yep, we'll definitely consider that.
Any other questions for Nathan?
May I make another comment, Mr. Chair?
Sure. Yes,
thank you. One thing that we didn't cover here, and the Park Commission will be seeing more of this in the coming months, is that we will have other engagement activities, and that's our team member that you can see on the screen, Alyssa Delgado. She's designing, along with Nathan, what those will look like. So we'll have targeted engagements and maybe some tours and things like that. We've done that with other trail master plans. So the open houses, Lori, those are sort of our kind of milestone pieces where we'll probably have a lot to report. But it could be that our engagement pieces that Alyssa and Nathan are working on that we don't have anything to report on right now will be other, you know, they'll be dispersed throughout that time frame. And so more to come on that.
Excellent. So Nathan, I only had a couple other comments. One was in regards to the community design team. I would recommend reaching out to the Grace Scott cyclists. They're out of Michael Cycles in Prior Lake. They ride 3 to 4 days a week. They're always looking for trails to ride. So you may want to reach out to them and have somebody from their group represent, the club. And then I would, continue to work with the different cities to see who else it would recommend for the regional trail system. And I don't know if there's like other bicycle clubs throughout the Twin Cities you can reach out to get their feedback as well.
Yeah, those are great ideas. We'll definitely look into that.
Yeah. And by the way, in regards to these trails, right, are they all on, I don't want to say Scott County property, right? Not where we don't have to buy a person's farm to go through it. If that makes sense. Because I know we had that challenge before, because originally we were supposed to go through someone's farm and we talked to the owners, but the owners sold. Then we have that challenge of, now you have to go right around someone's, farmstead, for example.
Yeah, I think that's going to be part of the process, is to kind of consider different options of what these alignments will look like. Right now on the map that I have on the screen, it's kind of showing that where it's going through, private property, but I think that's what we're looking to kind of flesh out throughout this process, is what is going to be the best alignment for these corridors, and where are we going to get that support to put these alignments through.
Okay. Excellent. And then if someone was to ask when these trails would actually come to fruition, is this something 10, 20 years down the road that you would know? I know we would have to look at our budget too, Patty, right? But someone's, they're going to ask that at those meetings. So I was just trying to get an idea if this is something,
Mr. Chair. So especially the one that goes cross country. So any destination regional trail of that length, there's lots of different ways to do it. And so we'll definitely need to rely on working with landowners who want to, maybe they're transitioning at some point in the next 10, like you're saying, 10, 20 years to do residential development. There may be some landowners that before they develop or before their property develops, they actually don't mind having a regional trail corridor coming through. There'll be segments along county roads, segments along local roads. So all those different things, but when we're dealing with a trail that we're implementing through development, it's a pretty long process. The corridor along 14 potentially could be quicker. Neither of these has any funding in our 10-year, we have our 5-year approved plan and then kind of a 10-year sort of visionary plan, and neither of these has funding in that time frame.
Got it. Okay, so maybe 20 years. I mean, if you had a guess, right? It's probably 20 years out. By the time, yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows, right? It's just
it's hard
sooner.
to say. Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons we do the planning, of course, is to sort of understand more, and maybe it'll provide some momentum for certain sections of the trail, and maybe a certain section moves faster than another section. There'll be a lot that we dig through throughout the process, and there'll be a lot more conversations like this through that process.
Okay.
Yeah,
excellent.
Good questions.
No, I just expect it's going to come up, right? I mean, Pat and I have been asking about that, the trail system right along 27, right, Texas Avenue for the last 9, 10 years, and now it's finally being built. So, good things do happen. Good.
And
Any other? Go ahead.
I just have to give a plug, and during that time, of course, there was a lot of progress on the park side. So.
Oh yeah, definitely, right? Yeah, just it just takes a while sometimes, right? And but good things happen. Excellent. Any other questions for Nathan? And then you're going to be able to share the link, right, with his email address. And by the way, will this go out on like the Scott Scene or the American newspaper or the Savage one, the Pacer, etc., for people to apply?
Yes. And we're also in development of kind of creating a website too with all the project information as well. That's not live at the moment, but it should be very soon here. So that'll be another resource as well.
Yeah, that'd be good. At least to get some signage out there at some of the parks, right? For some of the people that do walk around the parks in the winter. If they can find out about joining this other commission, that would be good, right? Or this design team, I should say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, now Nathan, do I understand, are you looking tonight for some volunteers from the Park Commission to join this?
Yes, if possible, yes.
And if I could just add my 2 cents, I would highly encourage the 2 new members to consider if this is, of a specific interest. I know when I joined, jumping right into some of these groups, these community groups or technical groups is a great way to just learn real fast. I mean, don't hesitate, from my perspective, if Lori, I know you mentioned when you introduced yourself that trails is something that you have interest in, don't feel, that it's too much. That's how I learned. So.
No, exactly. This is exactly why I wanted to get involved. So I would throw my name in the hat for sure.
So we got Lori signed up. Any others for the second person? Okay. Well, Nathan, if you're looking for a second person, you could always sign me up too, since I use the trail system quite a bit.
Okay.
And I'm also involved with that Scott County Bicycle Club too, the Great Scott Cyclist and Michael Cycles. Perfect. So you can always sign me up there because I do a lot of riding, especially on the gravel roads throughout Scott County, and then also the paved trails too.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, I'm sure you have lots of expertise and feedback that would be useful for this.
Definitely.
Thanks, Eric. You use
perfect.
The trail. Anybody?
Yeah, no, I love the trails, and I just and then I can help influence where they go, right? Even though 20 years from now, who knows where I'll be, right? Or whenever that day comes, right? But I want to be able to help influence that, right? And also making sure we get the right signage out there. So. Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you so much for letting me come and talk about this tonight. And then thank you, Lori and Eric, for signing up and helping us with this.
Sounds good. Thank you, Nathan.
All right. Thanks.
Hey, Patty, got another quick question on this before Nathan leaves. How often will we be hearing from Nathan on an update on this between Nathan and Alyssa? Is this quarterly, or are you thinking every other month, or?
I'd say probably every other month.
Okay.
And it could be that, there could be times where it's 2 months in a row when we're really needing to make decisions about alignments or have a lot of community meetings coming up.
Okay,
but probably on average every other month.
Sounds good. So it'll be similar to like when Nathan Moe does it for Clear Lake Master Plan.
Yes.
Excellent. And then it'll have to be approved by the Parks Advisory Commission before it goes to the Scott County board, right?
So it's the board, it's sort of at the leisure of the board. So typically we can ask for just general feedback and consensus. We can do a formal motion that says to the board, this is what we approve or support, approve, don't like, anything like that. So it's kind of depends on what the Park Commission is interested in and what the county board is asking for.
Got it.
We've done it different ways in the past.
Okay, because when I was looking at his original, I don't want to say agenda, right, or project milestones, it talks about plan approvals for Scott County Scott County Board of Commissioners and then the Parks Advisory Commission.
Yeah,
so I wasn't sure if that was the order or not. So
yeah, the more I noticed that, and I didn't catch it earlier. Maybe it would have been a better we could have described it as feedback from the Parks Advisory Commission and input and final approval by the county board. Okay. So there is, those are different, and we've done a little bit differently over the years with different planning processes. And we can keep talking about what what the park commission would like to do and what the county board would like in
Got
terms
it.
of that
Okay.
official, it's sometimes nice to have a motion from the advisory board. This is going to be a big project, a lot of communities impacted, and the county board may want some specific feedback and formal approvals from the Parks Advisory Commission. So we'll see. Good catch on that.
Okay, sounds good. And by the way, will naming be part of this whole process? Naming of the trails?
We should bring it up during the planning process, absolutely. And then we'll get to resurrect all that work we did.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I just don't want to have to go through it all, so we go through this, then we come back, 5 years later and figuring out names, right, for the trail system.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up. And it's easier to do it. I mean, the challenge is when the trails aren't built yet, it can get awkward. But you certainly can name it. And then, 30 years down the line, if there's 5 miles here and 3 miles there and the alignments change or the connectivity, names can be changed. The nice thing about having a name for a master plan alignment is people can rally behind it and it can be part of the vision for it. We probably should consider that as a part of the process, yes.
Yep, that'd be good. Then we can put them on our maps, for the Three Rivers maps, right? And the Scott County maps, for example.
So you guys don't like you don't like the name "A Portion of the Southern Scott Regional Trail"? It's not...
Exactly, right. And then in apps like the Trail Forks app, right? They could reference, and say we add, say we put in 2 miles of pavement, right? At least it could be in the app, right, under the correct name. So, I like it. And then we can also figure out the signage too of how many big signs they need and where they need them, et cetera. Maybe that's part of the whole plan as well. We're getting better. We're getting more experience, right? 9, 10 years down the road, it's becoming a lot easier to figure out the trail systems.
Yes.
Excellent.
Nathan, can you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, there's nothing else. Are we okay to move over to 10B? Once Patty shares her screen.
Let's see, can you see the agenda?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Let's go down.
Are you okay with us going into Cleary Lake Master Plan Draft Development Concepts?
Nathan, Mo, are you ready for that?
I am, thank you.
Let me know what image you want me to show.
I thought I'd just go through the concepts as that are in the packet, although if...
Do you want to share your screen so you can use your cursor?
Yeah, why not?
Sorry about going back and forth on this, guys, but I think it will be better if Nathan's having to point out details. It'll probably make it more clear for you guys.
Give me one moment.
Sure.
Thank you, commissioners, for having me back. Do you see, you don't see my screen, do you?
Yeah, yes, we do.
And you see the map of Cleary?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be jumping between monitors, so I'm not ignoring you when I'm looking at to the left. But my name is Nathan Moe. I'll do a quick introduction for the new commissioners. I'm the park planner. I work when we have an office space. I work in Shakopee with Alyssa and Patty, and I'm excited to share this planning process with you all, and I'll try to give some of the background as I go through this for the benefit of those 2 new members. So a little over a year ago, we started the process, and we are doing some very similar things to the Trails master plan process that Nathan Abney was describing. We have a technical team of staff from both Scott County and Three Rivers. We have a resident strategy team, which is our name for our community design team, who have been heavily involved in helping understand kind of in-depth conversations about some of the issues that we're dealing with at Clery. And we've continued that process for quite some time now. In November, this group saw early concepts. We were calling them bubble diagrams, kind of saying, this is how the different amenities at Cleary Lake Regional Park will, how they might interact between each other, how they might be placed, you know, one next to the other, and how the park might develop to address all of the needs of the park as identified throughout our planning process. So in November, you all gave some feedback. We had provided some recommendations. Generally, it seemed to be fairly positive feedback and that we were moving in the right direction. So the next phase over that time, we shared those comments with our consultant, WSB, and WSB has brought those concepts to the next phase. So that's sort of what we're looking at here. And there are several images that they produced for us. A big part of this conversation has kind of morphed a little bit to see if there's an opportunity to get some of the campground compliance issues that are one of the leading reasons for doing this master plan moved forward. So there is a bit of a focus on the campground area. I think it makes sense from a master plan perspective to think about what the ultimate plan for the park is. So I'll share those images that show the phasing of the campground, but I'll primarily focus on what the final master plan will be recommending. I'll pause just for a second, just because this is kind of a project that's really deep into the process, and see if there's any just questions or comments, especially from those two new commissioners. And if not, that's okay. So looking at this map, we see the full extent of Cleary Lake Regional Park. There are a couple of elements outside of that focus area, that enlargement area that you see highlighted in the black outline in the middle. And I will highlight those here. One is to remove an access off of Texas Avenue, and that would ultimately bring the maintenance road off of the main entrance. And then the transportation folks would appreciate that long-term, so that there's not traffic coming onto that busy road from 2 points that are relatively close by. So this solves that issue. There's a trailhead opportunity on the west side of the park, as we've seen from residents, just generally how people use the park. They are looking for opportunities to park in an area where they can jump on the trail really quickly. And people park in this area. They used to park in this area, I think, with the reconstruction of a lot of CASA 27 Texas Avenue, that might be limited. So we did want to provide an opportunity for a small parking area so people can have a quick access to the park, do a loop around and be on their way. And then a few extra trail opportunities. There's one on the northwest side of the lake. There is one on the southwest side that we think is kind of underutilized, and we can provide more trail access and trail miles that way. The only other thing, and I think this fits in very nicely with what Nathan Abney is doing with the Trails Master Plan. If you recall, one of the easterly trail segment that they're planning goes to the south end of Cleary Lake Regional Park. We have a maintenance road there that people are welcome to use, and theoretically could be a component of the regional trail, but we also wanted to explore the opportunity for something that's a little more kind of a scenic route, something that is more dedicated for trail use. And this concept provides that route in sort of a parallel fashion to that maintenance road, but for a good stretch of it, it's significantly off of that. And that would be a paved trail. The other two trails would be unpaved. I think that is the extent of what we are looking at kind of from a broad view of the park. So jumping into the enlargement area, the next three images show ways that we can get to compliance in the campground. And this project would This identifies an access route for folks to use a future dump station for RVs. Currently, RVs are allowed at the two existing RV spots. We have 6 new sites that would be very amenable to those who have RVs and they would like to use them there, but we will not be able to do that until we have a dump station per health code compliance. So, so that is one success that we would have by doing this first phase here. We'd also have a proposed shower house. That's one of the other key components of the health code compliance, as well as provide water service within 400 feet of all our campsites. So this concept just shows that very first phase that would bring us to health code compliance. I won't focus too much more on that at this point, but it's sort of a minor change, a minor tweak that would bring us into that first phase of the campground being improved. I don't want to spend a lot of time on these either, but we do want to, one of the main things that folks want to see from our planning process is different types of campground opportunities. So this would add more RV sites, it would add some camper cabins, and this would be theoretically a second phase, all within that, in the kind of area where we're thinking campground expansion can occur. And then ultimately, this is what the hope would be for the final vision of the campsite or the campground. We would be looking at around 60 campsites total, and I think 65 with the proposed cabins. So there'd be 5 cabins and about 60 sites. Most of the walk-in campsites that exist today would continue to exist, with the exception of the ones in this area. And then we would add a significant component of RV, drive-in, car camping sites that would have electric hookups, and then they would use the dump station and then the water. And they would each have water service as well, I believe. So we did ask them to, WSB, to focus on what that campground phasing would look like, but ultimately it would fit. When it's complete, it would fit in similar, or it'd fit in as this image shows, that would provide, you know, how I mentioned that the campsites north of the access road would be going away, and they would be used for more picnicking areas and playground areas. We've got some of those identified here. We've got a parking space. And a lot of the reason for shifting some of this day use area into this part of the park would be to provide some relief from the congestion that the park is feeling on the existing parking area. If any of you have traveled to the park on a busy holiday weekend, or even just a very nice summer weekend, the parking area gets quite full, and we're hoping that by expanding that day use area, we can alleviate some of that congestion. And so we're essentially providing a lot of the opportunities that are on the eastern side over onto this western side, and just generally this Cleary Point area. It exists today as a very popular group camp site that gets a lot of folks kind of interrupting those private reservations. So we know that it's a popular space and that it would get used, and that there's a desire for people to use it. So we think that we can activate that space and make it a little more approachable for folks who are looking for more picnicking space, that maybe if they missed out on getting there early enough to get some of the prime picnicking areas on the eastern side, they could try out something new. I think a few other things I'd like to highlight on too is some solutions that they're looking at for improving the boat launch area. Operationally, there's some struggles there because it is somewhat small. The rental facility is, it sees a lot of private users bringing their boats and wanting to launch there. We encourage them to launch here, but it's quite a bit a ways away, and there's some resistance from guests. And if we can provide one location for all boat launching, I think we would be doing the public a service. So that's an area where we would see a pretty big improvement. Some minor things are improvements to the volleyball court, improving the trail around the lake that's quite congested, as we all know. So widening that trail would allow for bikers, rollerbladers, walkers, and everybody to coexist a little bit more easily. And then also a major component of the fully realized master plan would be a second entrance over to this side. So we could clearly identify for folks who are camping that if you're using that type of facility, you can turn at this location prior to the golf course, prior to the boat launch, prior to the pavilion, and all those things that that are quite popular and a major draw of the park. And this is another kind of vision of what that Cleary Point area would be. We envisioned some more shoreline access, some fishing opportunities. This is a boardwalk that was designed that would have some fishing spots located on it. We know from the fishing line and bobbers that are stuck in trees and things like that, that people are fishing over here. And of course, our operations folks see that on a frequent basis, but we think something like this could be a great opportunity to get people using the lake. And we really like that idea. So it would include these new picnic areas with picnic tables, exercise stations. This little turnaround here would be a place where we could have food trucks come and provide a place where people can get dinner and enjoy the park while they're, not, this is a concept that I've always thought of when I pre-pandemic had to pick up the kids and rush off to make dinner while they're hungry. And if we could just go to a park and grab dinner and combine that with something that really helps, combine that with a trip to the park that really helps with kind of alleviating the stress of all of our busy lives. And so that's one idea that I really like. And I think that's really kind of the way this is shifting. I just want to make sure that I kind of talked about some of those specifics, especially for those new members, but I know that's a little bit repetitive for some of you who have been involved previously, but I do want to provide an opportunity to see if there's anything you think that there's missing out of these concepts. If you think there's something that we have an opportunity at this point, while there's still a draft, to shift the direction of this. I want to take your comments today if you have them. I do also want to share that we just have finished getting these concepts from WSB just before the break. And there were a few minor tweaks that they've shared with us that I think actually you are seeing today. These are slightly different than the ones in your memo. But we will be bringing these to the leadership team. We'll be bringing these to the RST, and the technical team has just seen these updated ones that were received 2 days ago. So there is more to come. They are still evolving, but I certainly want to make sure that this group has had an opportunity to see what the direction of the plan is and provide you with an opportunity to provide comments.
Well, thank you for the overview. Do any commissioners have any questions for Nathan?
I have one, if I could, Kathy Gerlach. Nathan, I was just wondering, I know Barb had some comments about sparing some of the wooded areas. I know you talked about it in the packet, but can you kind of expand a little bit on that, where those areas are? Sure. It's a little bit confusing where the way it was described in the packet. So maybe just point them out, talk about that.
Yeah, so in those early bubble diagrams, if you recall, we had identified quite a large area for camping. And yep. WSB was able to meet our goal of having around 60 to 65 campsites within just one of the bubbles that they had provided on those previous diagrams. And we had an area to the south of the Cleary Lake Loop in this area that we had identified for potential expansion of more camping. And ultimately we don't think that is necessary because we can fit the number of campsites that we're aiming for within that Cleary Lake, just north of the Cleary Lake Loop. So this area here is should be retained as that kind of just natural spaces.
I have a couple of questions, if I might.
Sure.
One of the last meetings, I think it was probably November, Jerry Hennon made some pretty good comments about disc golf. And I want to hear a little bit more about that, and also pickleball. And if you could frame it, Nathan, in terms of what they're doing across the entire park district, what are the trends? Are they leaving pickleball entirely to the cities in all the park district, or some parks within the park district wide, and there's some parks that are having pickleball, or disc golf? It's a different demographic. Jerry pointed out. I'm guessing it's fairly easy to put in, but might be really labor intensive to maintain. So any comments you could make on those two topics, that'd be great.
Sure. We have talked very substantially about disc golf. Ultimately, when the resident strategy team was discussing it, they did like the idea, but ultimately it ranked at the very bottom of their priority list. In talking with operations and maintenance, there was a period where we were exploring the idea that it could be some sort of practice course. Something where we have a couple of those in the park district. I think Lake Minnetonka has 3 baskets, and that would allow for easy use by the public and not an operational challenge. You wouldn't have to be looking at people's passes, and our public safety officer wouldn't have to be enforcing folks, making sure that they've paid their fee. And then ultimately, it was kind of in talking with those parks that have those practice courses, even those didn't seem to be all that well used. But we do know that operations, ORS, our outdoor recreation school, does a lot of programs with their own baskets. And we think that we can implement something like that where people can have that disc golf beginner experience here, where it doesn't offer a operational or maintenance challenge. Because you're right, they would be pretty easy to put in, certainly not free or anything, and it would take a substantial amount of cost, but not something like 10 miles of paved trail or 5 miles of paved trail, something like that. It would, but then it would be fairly maintenance intensive. At least that is the perspective of our maintenance folks. So we did retain some areas that are not impacted that would be good candidates for a disc golf course in the future. One of those areas was in this general vicinity. And then another area in this general vicinity that someday in the future, if the demand continues to be there for disc golf, we think that in a future master plan, it could be an opportunity. But there hasn't seemed to be the momentum, other than Mr. Hennon's comments, and a few others have suggested it might be a good thing to keep in mind. It just hasn't seemed to resonate with the technical team or the resident strategy team, and ultimately that's why we haven't emphasized it as a priority.
How about pickleball?
So,
and is that being left entirely to cities generally, or to other parts of the district to have those?
I am not familiar with any pickleball courts that are regional park facility exclusive. Well, so the reason I'm stumbling on this is because the city of Minneapolis is doing some with or the park board in Minneapolis is doing some pickleball, and I'm not sure if that fits within their regional park designation or if it's just city courses. My understanding is that generally is viewed as a city type of facility. And I don't know if it's been pushed or not. It's only come up very minimally here. I think it does seem to fit within that context of what a city might provide, with, you know, similar to tennis courts. Maybe you could make the analogy that it's similar to like a basketball court too, but those hard surface sports are generally seen as a city facility, and we haven't pushed that issue very much.
One final, if I could, I'm looking at the campground design, actually, it's a concept plan. It's not a design. Is that correct? And
yes, it's a concept, correct.
Because I'm looking, I have some awareness of how the campground works, and you would predict that on all those sites, on any given Sunday, 9 to 11, they'll all be leaving, or most of them, and you have to have really probably more laneage and more distance for that dump station, because in that 2-hour period, you might have them all lined up.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I know WSB is thinking about that, and they're trying to be very thoughtful about how they can make that work for those busy times. It's a good point. And I think, you know, this concept here is showing an aggregate base road, kind of the least expensive route. Maybe further down the line, they would, you know, make it a little bit more accessible. Actually, this is probably a better map since it shows the new circulation, but it doesn't always have to exist like that. We can always make improvements, and we can phase those improvements too. So if we were to, you know, put in, we would have the 6 existing RV sites, we would add these 11. We could see how the dump station is functioning at that point. And then as we continue that expansion, we can provide that specific design that's needed to accommodate the traffic that would be seen for that full expansion. So great point. I think that's something that the phasing of the campground would really allow us to keep up with that traffic and the demand that's needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Nathan, this is Lori Schmid. Say the dump station as the park exists right now is not needed. It's only needed when it's expanded.
So we have 2 RV sites that have full hookups, and because they have full hookups, it is not required for those 2 sites. Now, in our efforts to make the campground and the group camps up to code, let me get to this one. We had to close a group campsite that also functioned as individual rentals. So I think it was 5 sites in the Red Pine campsite that were closed because they didn't have access to bathrooms within the right distance. And to help alleviate that, just recently, I don't know if you can see these 6 yellow dots, those represent 6 new sites that were installed, and they are drive-in sites. And currently they would only be allowed for car camping and nothing that could hold waste like an RV can. So to be able to open those up, I think we would be able to increase the fee for those, and therefore the revenue would increase. To open those up, we would need that dump station.
Nathan, we also have that point. We allow RVs there, and essentially, Lori, we were tagged as non-compliant right now for several issues.
That's what I read.
Yeah, so we've worked with the state. We have kind of a plan, an iterative plan, or not iterative, but a step-by-step plan. And this first phase that we're showing in the master plan would it includes all the elements that would make the campground compliant. And at the same time, we've made and will continue to make some small tweaks. So we're actually getting something back from it. Because we said, if we're going to put these in, let's try to maximize revenue. So with the new dump station, with relocating some things, adding restrooms and things like that, more of these will be able to be rented out at a higher rate because RVs can use them.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from any other commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple. Nathan, I know we've covered it before, but could you refresh my memory, and then also for the two new members, the timing? And I think I know that we have three steps in phase one with the campgrounds, and then I'm most interested in when phase two, the day camp or the day use area, when that would occur.
So no specific timeline for this implementation. Obviously, the master plan helps facilitate funding for some of the elements, and is a big reason for the impetus for this plan. Generally, a master plan would have a timeline horizon of about 20 to 30 years. And then you'd start to think about doing another updated master plan to continue to see if the targets of the plan are meeting the needs of the residents. Aside from some of those compliance-based things and different opportunities that might pop up, generally things aren't really focused for improvement for the next 10 years within Clery, just because we have other priorities within other parks, and Clery has seen some significant improvements in the recent past. One of those first things that might be seen as an improvement is the improvements to the loop trail. And I think our pavement plan has that being reconstructed in about 10 years. So that might be an opportune time, for example, to see the improvements on that one. But short question is somewhere between 10 and 30 years.
Yep. Okay. That's what I expected. And, a lot of times things change and opportunities arise or funding arises, and that changes that plan. So
yeah.
My second question is the existing Cleary Point group camp. Does that have a relocated area in the, development of phase two?
It does not. That is one of the impacts of this master plan is reducing the group campsites. Ultimately, the Cleary Point group campsite would be removed, and Norway Ridge exists somewhere in this vicinity, and that would be removed as well. Some of these RV stations are identified as that could be used by multiple RVs at once. So while we're limiting those really large group camp opportunities, although retaining Oak Grove, and is there one other one, Patty, that I'm blanking on? I guess technically there's a winter group campsite over by the Lakeside Pavilion. We think that the expanded group RV sites and the opportunities for people having larger RV sites helps provide some opportunities that didn't exist previously and sort of are compatible to those group camp opportunities. But there might be some folks that are disappointed that we don't have as many group camp opportunities at Cleary Lake.
Okay, thank you.
We have not had a lot of, I'm sorry, just one more comment on that. We have not had a lot of comments on folks saying we absolutely love the group camping and it's something that absolutely has to stay. I'm not saying that those don't exist. I'm sure there are people that are saying that, but it is not a main theme that's coming through.
Because I know the Boy Scouts like camping there, right? Especially winter camping. Hey, got a quick question, Nathan. On your trail system that I can see there, right? You've got the campground right next to the trail. Would there be like a barrier of trees to kind of block the campground from the trail? Because right now, if you go right around the park, right, you really can't see the campground on the trail system, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to ruin that for the campers or for the walkers, right?
Yep. And I think that's the kind of thing that we would have to figure out in a design process once we're implementing something like this. But I think you're right. It would be ideal to provide some barrier, some sort of vegetative barrier there. It is closer, and you would likely bike past campers and they would see each other. But I think there are probably some ways that we could screen that to a degree.
Yeah, I'm okay if the campers see each other. I just don't, I mean, there's a lot of people that walk right around the trail on a daily basis, right? It's just, I don't think they want to be seeing campers all the time.
Yeah. Well, I would just remind, that's for a stretch here, and the loop exists for, 3 miles. So that's a couple 100 feet out of 3 miles. So not to say that it's not worth considering. I'm just within the context of the full loop. I think it might be something we could deal with.
Because like right now, you can't even see those campsites. What were the campsites 7, 8, and 9 when you and I just went over there?
Yep.
And I didn't even know those campsites were there, right? So yep. I'm just hoping it's going to continue to be like that, where they're kind of hidden away.
Certainly for those sites, I think they would be hidden away. Those are the walk-in sites here. It's the drive-in sites that would be a little bit different.
See, I'm a little bit nervous about that one, especially if anybody has pets back there too. Because I think you can bring your dogs to the campsites, right?
On leash, yes.
On leash, yeah. So, but I'm sure they don't always keep them on leashes at their campsites. So I'm just thinking, you think about people walking their dogs up and down these trail systems and dogs running out. So just,
it's worth
this experience, right? Just something to think about, right?
Well, ultimately, so I'm wondering if there's other folks that are kind of share that thought. We are a little bit congested in this area, partly because we were trying to retain some of those areas as more natural spaces. So we're trying to get as many, we're trying to get a campsite or a campground that allows for, good revenue, is efficient from an operational standpoint, it's efficient from a maintenance standpoint, and therefore, trying to keep things kind of in one place seemed to make sense. If we wanted to spread things out more, we probably could explore that more to try and, keep things separated. But I'm just kind of curious if there's others that feel strongly about trying to keep this campground more screened off from the loop. I should say too, just coming to mind, if we were to reconstruct this loop, theoretically, you could potentially, let me get back to this map, you could potentially push that trail out a little bit further. I don't know if the hydrology would allow for that or not, but it seems like theoretically that could be a potential solution too.
Yeah, because it looks like it only affects 6 of the campgrounds. So if I counted correctly.
Yeah, I can jump back to that. I know I'm jumping around a lot. I apologize for that. These 6 or 7 sites. Yep.
Nathan, what is the timeline for the expanded campground?
So I think the only thing that we should prioritize, and it might be seen on a shorter time horizon, is this phase 1A, and then the rest would fit within that 10 to 30 year timeline, unless Patty magically finds a bunch of funding for extra camping. So the master plan's not specifically identifying when things should happen. It's really just providing that vision of what the park could look like.
Well, the reason I was going there is if you thought you were going to put a campground there, you could, in the next few years, couple of years, plant some small pine tree, rows, a row or trees there, and in 10, 15 years, they'd be massive,
right. Yeah, the best time to plant a tree is what, 50 years ago, and the second best time is tomorrow.
Right.
I have a quick question, and just to refresh again, in a master planning process, if that trail is, shown on this as hugging up against the campground, in a design process, we could still move it further away, as we discussed, because that's part of the design process versus the master planning. Is that
That's accurate? Very correct. Yes, the master plan is intended to be kind of a 30,000 foot view, flyover view of what the park might look like. The design process really defines how things specifically interact and how they get constructed. It's a great point.
Mr. Chair, if once we make sure all the commissioners have had an opportunity to ask questions, I do have a couple comments and a couple things I want to draw our attention to make sure that we get good feedback on.
Okay, so are there any other questions before Patty provides additional feedback? Well, hearing nothing, Patty, I think you should go ahead and maybe we have some questions afterwards.
Yeah, okay. One of the things I just wanted to mention, because I don't want this to get lost sort of in one of the reasons why we're doing the master plan is Nathan mentioned how the existing active use area is really well loved, right? And we know that we have a population that's growing around this park, is going to continue to grow. And we really, a master plan needs to be visionary and look to the future and say, not only what are sort of the unique things we can maybe be planning for, but what's the sort of bread and butter park amenities that people enjoy. And we really know that we're not going to be able to keep up with passive picnicking. So just families coming to the park and being comfortable, being able to reasonably find a spot, reasonably find parking, restrooms and things like that. And if we don't plan now to provide that sort of basic regional park use, we're not going to be able to keep up with it. And so we really pushed ourselves to reimagine the point. And I think we've come up with a pretty exciting plan. I think that from that one use, we've really, I think, done the job. So I just wanted to mention that because it's more than just sort of addressing issues today. It's us pushing ourselves to be visionary. And then I wanted us to make sure we talked about the multi-purpose building because, adding buildings isn't cheap. And I'm afraid if this gets lost in the discussion, we won't have enough sort of feedback and dialogue when we go to leadership in the county board ultimately. So, we look to this group to help us make sure that we're thinking things through, answer questions. You're often our devil's advocate. So Nathan, can you cover a little bit more about why this multi-purpose building, some of the discussions that went into that? And I'd love to hear what the commissioner's feedback is on that. Thank you.
So the bubble diagrams actually had this building and the area for outdoor, for the outdoor recreation school to have a space where they can run their programs that's not conflicting with the golf programs and is not conflicting with the rental facility and the pavilion. Ultimately, they thought it might be an interesting idea to include that within this Cleary Point area. It's close by to some of the water features. It's close by to some fishing opportunities. There might be some good compatibility with the types of activities that ORS is offering for their camps and for their programs. There's been no really specific need for it to be here from the ORS folks that have been involved from the technical team. But ultimately, if we operationally want to make sure that this space is reserved for them, there's no reason why it can't go there. Ultimately, the ORS folks had said, we don't necessarily have a specific area where we have to be. They're quite flexible in how they can operate, and they will end up moving around the park no matter what. So we had identified in the, I'll go back to the big view. We had identified in those bubble diagrams that we liked the potential for something in this space here, or even down in this space further away. But what WSB has provided us is an opportunity to kind of discuss what would it look like if it was more centralized. And there might be some benefits for having, public bathrooms here along, having one building for both opportunities is probably a cost savings. So there's some benefit there. I think my initial thought is that potentially if you have something that's in this ideal location, we're going to get a lot of pressure to rent it out to to folks who are having, graduation parties or just small gatherings or things like that. And we don't want to have the same issue that we have at the Pavilion where during those busy times, the outdoor recreation folks don't have a space to use. So this is really critical for making sure that that team has a place where they can bring their kids if there's bad weather, if there's just a needed break from the hot sun, or if there's a rain shower or something like that. Operationally, the ORS team needs a space that's really dedicated to them. So that will be one of the conversations as we bring this forward to those different groups that I mentioned, but that's kind of the context for the way it's proposed in this concept.
Thank you, Nathan. I want to add a little more to also sort of the service that we provide for rec programs. So essentially with the existing facility space, we're capped at what we offer for our summer camps and our family programs today. We know there's demand for more. We're not proposing that Clery have a giant nature center or even a giant program center, because those, in the future, we're hoping to have something like that at Doyle Kennefic. And then maybe someday down at Blakely Bluffs, we'll have like something that works along with the Nye Nature Center. So at Clery, we want to be reasonable in terms of growing programming here. But we also know at Clery, there's so much to do. And we have so much infrastructure. So, and we've tried using the visitor center more, and there's just too many conflicts with the golf program. We have a wonderful golf program for seniors and youth and everyone else. There's no room in there. Nathan alluded to how the ORS team kind of gets pushed around. So they might have a summer camp that they want to have the kids have utilize the Pavilion building, which is to the east of this image. And while most of their summer camp day is spent outside doing outdoor things, if you're having an 8-hour program, especially day after day, you have to provide the kids a place for shelter and rest. So they're really this team that we have serving. And I want to say, gosh, I wish I had the numbers off the top of my head. I think our revenue from this is probably from Cleary is probably about $40,000. And gosh, I wish I knew the participant numbers, but essentially we've been capped for about 5 years. And if we want to grow that, we essentially need another solution. And so our solution, our proposal is to have some sort of facility with a roof and 4 walls and restrooms, a place to wash up. It doesn't need to be fancy. However, in this location that WSB is suggesting, it could be multi-purpose. It's close to the lake, so can we have it be for programming and also for some other things? Like Nathan was saying, the outward facing restrooms and maybe some rentals for the public. So that's kind of the whole story. I think it's still a little bit of a conundrum. And there you have it. I'm look forward to what questions and thoughts you guys have on all that.
I have a question as one of the newbies here. What is the ORS program?
It's the Outdoor Recreation School. So it's the group of Three Rivers Park District that provides educational programs. It provides, the paddling in the park opportunities. They also run day camps in the summer. It's a department that provides a great introduction for new users to the park. Anything to add to that, Patty?
Yeah, they're a programming team. Think about it like that. So they're writing the curriculum for summer camps. They do the walk when the moon is full, canoe when the moon is full. They do maple syruping programs. So they're the interpreters and the educators. And that's their focus.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, if there's no further questions, then Patty, are we going to be just receiving monthly updates then from Nathan as we go forward?
So thank you for bringing that up, Nathan. I was going to have you do next steps real quick, and maybe if you can estimate when we might be back to the Park Commission and the board, kind of putting you on the spot. And we still have to kind of look at the schedule, but maybe if you can just share what you know at this point, that'd be great.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have an update for you in February. We'll be going next to the leadership team. The next step is the technical team, and then the leadership team, and then we have some other internal reviews before we allow some time for WSB to make any adjustments that are needed. So after those adjustments, which right now I think we'd be looking at getting back by the end of February, we'd just be kind of formalizing our revenue projections and making sure that operationally all of the elements within the park make sense. So I could see an update in March as the next one. And then I think things should move pretty quickly after that, provided that there's not significant changes. And then we can get closer to that, that final concept and combine that with the text portion of the master plan, which would then go to an open house and to formal reviews and approvals.
And what we missed in there is the county board. So one of the things we're wanting to do is have enough of a solid proposal with costs, capital costs, as well as operations costs and revenue, that when we have a workshop with the county board, you know, there's a lot of meat to it, that we feel that operationally we can make it work, and that it makes sense, and that it's a good, you know, good plan. Yet we don't want it too far done. So we're kind of constantly talking about that. So it could be that, and then there's the question of, do we go to the county board before we come back to the park commission? And there's not really a right or wrong on that, but we just want to make sure we're not getting too far ahead without the county board having a really good opportunity to weigh in. So that's something, the timing of that, we're still trying to hit the right mark.
Excellent. There's no other topics. Right now it's about 7:30, so I think we're a little bit behind schedule, right, Patty?
A little bit.
Okay. If you want to go to the next one, which is a Parks Improvement Program overview.
Sure, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen. So what I am sharing with you is, oops, hold on, I need to move you guys on a different monitor so I can see my document. Okay, so the county board in December approved the countywide operating and capital budgets. And for the capital budgets, we plan out for 5 years. And the Parks Improvement Program is a chapter of the county's overall capital plan. So in December, our 2022 to 2026 capital plan was approved. And I want to do a real high level overview of the projects that were approved. And a little on the process of how this gets done. In February, we'll come back to this because we'll be starting up the process for proposing projects for 23 through 27. That process will go roughly from February through May for the initial pieces. And so essentially projects are submitted in May of every year. And then after May, that's when the county board really starts having discussions of what's been proposed. But for now, I'm sharing what's already been approved for this year's 5-year plan. Generally speaking, and I was noticing in this background information, I think we need to do some updates. I was reading it over the weekend and it looks like it's maybe some of the background is a little bit outdated. The timeline here that's showing here is not entirely accurate. So I hesitate to even use it. I just wanted to point out that there is a timeline. This is not a great demonstration of what that is. As you can see, essentially staff, this is saying that staff starts in March and we really actually start in January so that we make sure that our advisory commissions can be involved in suggesting projects. And we get input from the Parks Advisory Commission more like in March, April. And then we end up submitting in May to the our capital administrative staff. We submit applications to them, and then they carry it through sort of all the review processes. So I need to do a little bit of work on that background information. Here's our comprehensive plan map. We always have that as a part of our our 5-year plan. And then here's a summary of the plan. And let me zoom in here so you can read it a little bit better, although I think you do have this in your packets. So one thing I just want to mention is this first item here in 2022, McMahon Lake Outlet. That's actually not a parks project. That's a project that's being planned and implemented by the Scott WMO. But we needed a place for it to land in the capital plan. And so we're running it through the parks capital plan, but I really don't have much to say on it. I'm happy to bring information in the future or have the project manager come if we want to talk about that. But I don't have anything to share with you at this point, except that I know that they're still putting funding together on that. And Commissioner Ulrich, you may actually have heard more about this McMahon project recently than I have. Certainly you're welcome to share any information you have if you'd like to.
No, I don't really have much to add on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this summary is broken down into the 5 years. Projects are listed, and then we identify funding sources. So in 2022, the projects that were proposed, reviewed, and ultimately approved include an acquisition project at Doyle, Kennefic, and that's something that we are working on today. We have something appraised, and we are actively negotiating. And any dollars that you see in our capital plan related to any acquisitions, those are simply from estimated market value. So we don't publish any information. We don't make appraisal information public until we have agreements with the property owners. But we have to have some basis for conversation with our county board, and they need to be, they need to have a basis for approving the capital plan. So the way that we approach any of our acquisition projects is we just use publicly available information, which is estimated market values. So that's a project that we are working on. We are kicking off a development project at Spring Lake Regional Park. The design process will be kicking off here in end of January. We're just trying to get the contract signed. And the design happens this year, and then we'll actually be constructing next year. This is, and I will share more about this project at a future meeting. The county board is contributing, the county, I should say, I think $350,000 from levy towards this project, and the remainder of the funding is from the state. So a combination of legacy grants and bonding dollars that we already have in hand, I believe, all of it. We are also targeting a Cleary Lake Golf Course or Cleary Lake Channel Stabilization project. Some of our paved trails at Cedar Lake Farm will be resurfaced, and that at Murphy Hanrahan, a needed boardwalk is going to be replaced. That's failing on part of the popular walking trail. In 2023, we have identified $75,000 for putting in wells at the Clery Campground. This gets to the compliance issue that we mentioned as a part of the master plan. Part of the idea was that we wanted to wrap that master plan up prior to spending the $75,000 and prior to spending this $100,000 related to the dump station, because we wanted to make sure if we're going to invest anything in those amenities or infrastructure, that we do it in a way that serves the long-term campground plan and expansion. So these projects, the dollar amounts in the years are much higher level sort of estimates. They were kind of a placeholder. So those will definitely adjust in the coming years. and then the county board in the last few years in work session have really wanted to prioritize doing some amenities at Doyle Kennefic Regional Park, which is one of our parks that we've been acquiring since 2005. And really, we don't have any amenities and not really a way to invite the public to use it on a daily basis. So the board thought it was time to invest some of our funding to Doyle Kennefic. And we are identifying a combination of legacy, Parks and Trails legacy funding, future bonding dollars towards this. We have a small area of trail at Clery Lake that needs some reconstruction, and that will be coming up in 24. In 25, 3 pavement preservation projects, so real exciting, but it is needed. We're doing a mill and overlay of one of the roads at Cleary. Some of the trails, probably the Lake Loop, is going to get another resurfacing. And then this regional trail pavement preservation is for trails along or the Big Woods Regional Trail and the Spring Lake Regional Trail. And in 2026, this funding, I believe, is targeted for the design for doing an expansion of service at Cedar Lake Farm. I do want to mention the ARPA fund. So the American, what is it? What does it stand for? ARPA, American, why am I forgetting? What is the RPA? Anyone know? American Recovery Plan Act?
I think so.
Okay. The county will be receiving and has already received some funding through the American Recovery Plan Act. I think it's $30 million. And in December or November, we talked about this with the Park Commission. And the county board and leadership are going through a process right now to figure out what's the best use of that funding. And there are several park projects that we are proposing, and the board is asking us to collect various information. So we talked about this in the last couple of months. Depending on what happens with that process, some of these larger projects that I just mentioned could look a little different. The years could be tweaked, the investment could be tweaked. Maybe we add a site to this. So I just wanted, there's kind of that caveat that this was all approved, but we also know that in the next several months, as that ARPA process continues and things are approved, that this could change. And the Parks Commission will be a part of those conversations. In terms of this 5-year plan, that's about all I wanted to share tonight. I did want to use the opportunity to mention that we'll be starting up the next process for the next 5-year plan. And it's a rigorous process that we go through. And in the past, park commissioners have suggested projects. And we want to do that again this year if folks have ideas. And I would like to come in February with more information on what that looks like. And now that I'm saying this, I'm realizing we're a little bit behind in that a lot of the projects, when I say it's exhaustive, the groups that we work through, we really do a good job to make sure if staff or the public or the board or the park commission are suggesting a project, that we really run it through some filters to make sure it's really needed, right? And then of course there's criteria for the capital plan. If it's a safety issue, it has to be funded, right? If it's enhancement, there's going to be more scrutiny. And to find a project that's an enhancement, and to go through the work of justifying it and making the case for it and explaining, what is the operational tail and what's the revenue, that takes some work, and it should. But there's definitely a process, and we run our projects through the Park District CIP process. And then it jumps into the county CIP process. And the reason we work through the, for the new members, the Three Rivers Park District CIP process is they're our operational partner. And they also have a lot of experience operating parks, designing parks, developing parks. They have a really good research group. They have wonderful designers and landscape architects. So they're a great resource for us, and they're really good working with us to sort of, have challenging conversations to make sure projects that are being brought forward are really well vetted. And that process is just kicking off now. And both the park district very much understands that the projects that are being ultimately approved for Scott County parks, they understand that it's, the county board's decision, it's the county board's money. So there's a lot of flexibility sort of in that timing, and them knowing it's not necessarily their decision to make. They're there to help and provide expertise. So if park commissioners want to suggest any projects, I would ask that you be thinking about that. Even reach out to me before the February meeting. Commissioner Spieler actually started working with myself and our maintenance team on an idea that he has, I think back in November. And I don't remember where that landed, Eric, if that's something that's still in the works. But that's just an example of something.
Yeah, we're still working on that one. Actually, Nathan and I met with Justin and Tom back in, I think, late November, early December to talk about this project. So I was hoping to see it on a master plan, but I know it's eventually it'll get on a master plan, but we've got some good ideas. We could talk about it in the future, right?
Okay.
Yep.
So, and that's a one where we need a champion. So essentially, if someone comes up with a big idea, it's also like, or even a small idea, we say, okay, so who has the capacity to put all the information together, right? And make a case for it. Or if you don't have a ton of work, try to put it through the process and see what happens. So we do need some leg time to bring a good project through and give it sort of justice. So that's real quick overview. If anyone has ideas, like I said, reach out to me. In February, I'll try to carve out some time where we talk about this just a little bit more formally. And we can maybe there's a part of the agenda where we say, does anyone have any ideas that can be explored for this year? And if they have to, if they're ideas that are going to take some time to develop, that's okay, because we can always keep working on them and bring them back the following year. That's how a lot of capital projects happen. That's pretty much what I wanted to share. Are there any questions that I can try to answer right now about this, or any comments?
So, hey, in regards to the boardwalk replacement, so that's supposed to be coming sometime this year, and that'd be wide enough. I mean, I went back, I had to look through the notes too. So it looks like it'd be wide enough for the summer as well as for cross-country skiing for grooming in the wintertime. So they can actually run a groomer going across it.
That's what they're hoping.
Okay.
Yeah,
I hope it turns out. I mean, I ran across there a couple of times this fall. It was nice, but yeah, right now it's just a bunch of pallets kind of lined up in a row, right? So this is not a great boardwalk, but I think there's really good opportunities for having a really nice boardwalk back there.
Yeah, it'll be a nice improvement.
Any chance they could do one at Clery? I know this is, I was gonna bring this up to you on the side. You know, if you look at that extra loop that they only open up sometimes throughout the winter, because it goes through like a marsh, it goes through the cattails. It's on the south side, for example. When he showed his, right, his presentation, you can kind of see where it is, because I think that gives more opportunity for additional trails, especially in the summertime too.
So there's a perfect example of a project idea that we could start looking at. Yes,
definitely, right? So, you know, and then another one I brought up earlier too was doing single track walking trails, right? Or hiking trails throughout Cleary. We talked about that in the past and how do you maintain it and worry about runoff, etc. But that's also a great opportunity. Maybe that's something you could do in Murphy, Hanrahan, or even down by Blakely Bluffs. I would love to have that down there, you know? So could be a good project in the future.
All right, well, it sounds like I don't have any questions or further questions, okay. I should say.
There's no further questions. We're about, I don't know, about 30 minutes behind or something, 20 minutes behind, which is not bad. This is good, right? I was gonna get into section 11, informational items with projects and other updates. And I don't know, is Alyssa on? Can she give an update on Nature Connection? I think she was doing that in the past, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have in the past been doing Nature Connections. I do not have one for tonight, but I do have the next item, which is an update on the, oh, my video's not on. I'm sorry about that. An update on the mental health and wellness programming grant.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and cover that, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, so for the two new commissioners, hi, my name is Alyssa Delgado. I'm the Parks and Natural Resources Coordinator. I'm on the Parks and Trails team working with Patty and Nathan. For your context, in 2020, we applied for 2 equity grants for different projects. So we applied for these grants to the Metropolitan Council and we were successful in receiving both of them. And one of the grant projects is introducing mental health and wellness programming in Scott County. And as a part of that, we were seeking to hire a part-time wellness program coordinator. And I just wanted to share that we have successfully hired somebody and they start on Monday. So this is super exciting. I'm sure, so her name's Annie Bunio and I'm sure she will be showing up at the PAC and we'll introduce the commissioners to her formally, but I just wanted to share the good news and just update everybody on we are now going to be working to get her up to speed so that we can be providing these programs, in the next few months.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question or make a comment about
sure.
The Nature Connection? So one of the reasons we keep, I'm sorry, because I totally just cut people off in case they had a question or a comment for Alyssa. So let me pause and let's make sure you guys are have gotten through that item, and then if I could talk about Nature Connection, that'd be great.
I was going to say something about future equity grants. And you probably know what I'm going to say, Patty, is I'm hoping that we can see a future equity grant related to camper cabins in that we would provide low or no cost camping experiences to needy, those that couldn't afford it, that we could get an equity grant to
offset the cost.
Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there.
We should, Alyssa, next time we have the opportunity with Met Council staff, we should give them that idea. John, or Commissioner Elwick, it's unknown what the next version of those equity grants, what they'll target. So I think if we have ideas, we should be sharing them with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been 2 cycles of the equity grant so far, Commissioner, and they've been different each time on what was available for project submissions. So that's what Patty's referring to. But the next round will be open, I believe, in 2022. No, what year is it? 2023. I don't know what year it is. Sorry.
They all kind of blend together anyways.
Yes.
So I think Patty could hit the Nature Connection now.
Thank you. What I wanted to mention is, so we keep this Nature Connection on the agenda, regardless of whether staff has prepared one. And I don't know that we've ever clarified why that is. So part of the idea is that we want to encourage the Parks Advisory Commissioners, and not to exclude Commissioner Ulrich, to share any sort of interesting nature connections you've had, whether they're in one of our parks or elsewhere, as a means to make sure we're focusing on value in our parks and their natural resources. Not that we don't, but we do get lost in a lot of our planning and our development projects. And we wanted to draw attention to making sure that we have those conversations. So staff did not prepare one, but I would like the commissioners to comment on it if they would like to on any of their experiences.
Well, I'll mention one thing. I've been running at Murphy Hanrahan on and off for like the last 3 to 4 months. I've yet to see any deer, but yet I go up to Highland up in Bloomington and I swear I see 3 to 4 deer every time I'm there. So I'm still trying to figure out how they get more deer up at Highland than they do at Murphy Hanrahan. So that's just an observation. I mean, very, very little wildlife we see over at Murphy Hanrahan in comparison to some of these other parks. And I don't understand why.
Maybe that's because there's so much undeveloped habitat at Murphy Hanrahan for them to hide in.
It could be, right? It's just, or lack of water too, because some of the lakes, right, or some of the ponds back there have really dried up, and maybe they're starting to migrate somewhere else. I don't know. But it's just really weird that we have yet to see any kind of deer there. Yet I go to, Highland, it's like going to a petting zoo. Any other comments from the Nature Connection? Okay.
Alyssa saw 5 California condors recently, but not here.
Okay. Oh. In California?
Yes.
Okay.
Over on New Year's Day, I went hiking at Pinnacles National Park in California and was able to see 5, California condors with there's only like 400 in existence. So that's pretty cool.
That's special.
Yeah, that doesn't happen every day. Excellent. Well, I'm going to go over to 11B, Advisory Commissioner Reports. So this is an opportunity for all the commissioners to provide feedback on what they've seen in the newspaper, what they've seen at the parks, what they've seen at other parks, to provide just feedback in general to the commission. Does anybody have any updates for this month? Any thoughts? Well, then I'll make a comment or a couple comments. I was reading through the Prairie Lake American this week, and I saw a big article on the Spring Lake Park expansion, and I've also seen it on their website. So I was kind of surprised by that. It was like, this is great. Yeah. I was looking for your name, Patty, in it, but I didn't see your name anywhere in there, so I was kind of surprised.
I'll look it up.
Yep.
I haven't seen it yet.
So that was one. Second was I sent Patty a link to this, what was it, like a natural skating trail they were doing up in northern Minnesota. And I had heard about another trail that I think it's up to like, 5 miles long of ice skating. They started connecting all these neighborhood rinks together. And I thought that was kind of interesting because we were talking about that over at Cleary Lake Park too at one time, about putting a natural skating trail in place.
Yeah, I think the one you sent me was the one in War Road, and I think it's on a river.
Was that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, I think they utilize a river, and it goes through some wetlands, of course. And some people have houses that back up on it, and they have their skating rinks. I mean, it looks just marvelous.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of a cool idea, right? So since we were talking about that in the past. And then in regards to the Cleary trails, so we got 17 inches of snow back, December 13th. 4 days later, it all pretty much melted. It's unfortunate because the trails were just spectacular. Justin and the team did a fantastic job grooming them. So I was able to ski Sunday through, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. And by Wednesday afternoon, I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday where it was 65 degrees. I was running in shorts and a t-shirt that day. So they lost a lot of snow. They got a little bit more snow. It's groomed, but the trails are not in very good condition. Lots of little rocks poking through. But it beats the drive up to Highland and then skiing with everybody else on the hamster wheel up there because there's so many people up there, especially the last 2 weeks. So that's why we need man-made snow down in the southern metro area, but that's a whole different discussion. So anything else for advisory commissioner reports? Hearing none, I'm going to go to upcoming meetings for tentative Topics. So February of 2022, the PAC meeting. I don't know, Pat, if you want to go through these three.
Yep. So we'll for sure have those 3 items. So the Spring Lake Lakefront development, sort of an intro to how we're doing that, the design. And then, as I mentioned, we'll talk more about the capital plan, and I'll introduce the, I'll kind of do a refresher on our operating budget. And then we, commissioners, you might remember Alyssa mentioned in the last couple of months that the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community requested collection of wild rice from Spring Lake Regional Park. And we, of course, said yes. And they were using that to supplement a wildlife restoration they're working on. And we said, gosh, I wonder, wouldn't it be fun to hear more about that project? And what that request turned into was a visit from there. I think it's Andy Vig. He's scheduled to come next month. I think might be their new director at Hoko Karachi. And he's going to give a presentation about wild rice and its cultural significance. And I think he'll touch on the any of the restoration work they're doing related to wild rice. So we're really excited about that.
Yes, Patty, if I can jump in, from what I've heard is that it's Andy and Farron. So
awesome.
We'll hear from both of them.
Wonderful. Farron is their natural resources manager. So that's great confirmation. Then it really does sound like they'll talk about their restoration as well as the cultural significance. And then one thing I didn't mention, we need to look at our calendar for the year. So I will bring that next year. New commissioners, we meet the first Wednesday of every month. In the past, we've sometimes adjusted our summer meetings. Sometimes we go without one, or we move the dates based on holidays. The way that they land this year, that may not be necessary, but I would ask all the commissioners, look at your schedules. Look at the 4th of July holiday. Do you have, a vacation or something that you absolutely know you're going to be taking? And it's fine if 1 or 2 commissioners miss a meeting. We don't change the date just if there's one commissioner meeting, unless everyone really thinks, yeah, let's do that. We try to stick to our Wednesday meetings, but we certainly like to have some dialogue around it. So please take a gander, bring your calendars, and we'll add that to the agenda, working that out. I think that covers it for me.
And then Patty, like in the past, I believe it's January through April, we do it virtual. And if it works well for us, maybe May through September, we can do it in person outside, depending on the weather.
Yeah, in the COVID years, yes.
Yeah, in the COVID years, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
and that seems to work out better from my perspective, right? It's so much easier to talk face to face with everybody out in the park, and then we can see the variety of different parks too that we have.
Yes, we can talk about tours. So we do, Lori and Carrie. We try really hard to meet outside. There's even some discussion of trying to do March or April somehow outside with a bonfire. But I don't know that we'll be able to pull that off. But certainly, so we met May through October together outside this year, and it worked great. Actually, we were at Murphy Hanrahan in October, and we had lamps because the sun was set and it was so dark. So thank you for that reminder, Eric. We should also talk about loosely start brainstorming what parks do we want to make sure we get to multiple times, what parts of the parks, that kind of stuff. So think about that between now and then as well.
Okay, that sounds good. And even if we could do some of the trail systems or regional trails, right, that would be good too. And like I think we've done that in the past where we actually had the meeting on the bridge in Shakopee, right?
Yeah.
So not on a park, right? Or not in a park, but on the trail system. So I thought that worked out really well. So.
Sounds great.
Good. Excellent. Well, if that's it, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:05. So we were only 5 minutes late, which is not bad. So will someone make the motion?
I move for adjournment.
Yeah, a motion by Stieg and a second.
Gerlach.
Second by Gerlach. All those in favor say aye.
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 There you go. Motion carries. You guys have a wonderful January. Stay warm because it's going to be a roller coaster of temperatures over the next couple of weeks. So
Definitely.
Okay.
sounds good. You guys take care.
Glad to have you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.